Welcome back. My name is Douglas Grummons, and this is Podcast 15. Thanks for joining me again. I'm glad you're still with us. And this episode is going to be covering some work out of Osho's book called Innocence, Knowledge, and Wonder. And the question was asked to Osho. He says, I don't know who I am. I feel like I need grounding at some level. Is there no place for grounding? And Osho responds to us by saying, it is good that you don't know who you are, because all that you know will be wrong. The depth of your being is indefinable. It has no name, no form. The innermost of your being is always unknown and unknowable. And Socrates said, know thyself, not that you can know. He is saying, try to know yourself, and one day you will know that it is impossible to know. And when you come to a point where all knowledge disappears and you stand in a deep ignorance before yourself, that is the most beautiful experience and the greatest ecstasy. Just think, if you can know yourself, by knowing you will become limited. You will become a commodity. By knowing about yourself, you won't be happy. You will become very ordinary. Once known, you are finished with yourself. Then what will you do with the inquiry? If it is finished, you will be bored with yourself. Your being is a mystery. The more you know, the less you know it. The deeper you go, the more you see the infiniteness of it. The depth is such that you cannot touch the bottom of it. Never. People who think they know themselves are very superficial. People of depth always become aware of something unknown. And it is beautiful, because the unknown is always alive. The unknown is always infinite. The unknown is eternal. And Socrates said, know thyself. And he means try to know thyself, not that you will ever be able to know. And after Socrates, a Roman, Marcus Aurelius, said, be thyself. And he is better than Socrates. To know yourself is impossible, but to be thyself is possible. There is no need to know, just be. Knowledge is irrelevant. Being is enough. Just be yourself. So don't try to find a definition of your being. It is impossible. Live it, you can. Know it, you cannot. But why be bothered about knowing? Is not being enough? Just be yourself. So don't try to find a definition of your being. It is impossible. Live it, you can. Know it, you cannot. But why be bothered about knowing? Is it not enough? I think I've repeated that, but I know I talk a lot, sharing words of wisdom from all kinds of different sources and everything, and I may sound a little bit serious. I would love to let you know that I'm not always serious. I'm one of the most goofiest people you could ever come across. But anyway, I try to put on a serious face and read as well as I can. But anyway, Osho continues on by saying, there is an urge, a deep urge, a curiosity to open and know every mystery. But that urge is going to fail as you move within. If you move without, the urge can be fulfilled a little. Science can fulfill your urge because something can be known about the matter. But that too, I say, just a little. If you go deeper, there also the unknown comes to be encountered. The deeper you go, the more knowledge becomes shady and shaky. The deeper you go, the more everything is blurred. One of the greatest scientists of the West, Eddington, has written in his autobiography that when I started, the whole world looked like a mechanism. When I started working, searching, inquiring, the world looked like a great mechanism. And I had the idea that someday or other the mechanism would be known. And he thought that existence could be divided into two categories, the known and the unknown. Known, that which we have known, and unknown, that which we will someday know or other. It is only a question of time. At the end of his life, he said, Now life appears to be divided into three categories, the known, the unknown, and the unknowable. This unknowable the known and the known we can understand. It is only a question of time before the unknown can become known. Because one day the known was unknown, but the unknown, or the unknowable, that which cannot be known, which is impossible to be known, with what category religion enters in. Or with that category religion enters in, I should say. Anyway, Osho continues on by saying, when Eddington said, "Now as I look at the world, it doesn't look like a mechanism. Rather, it looks like a thought. Very mysterious. If he had lived a little bit longer, he would have certainly said that now it does not even look like a thought. Because a thought has a structure, a logic. It looks like a poem or a song. And a song is just like birds singing in the morning. Beautiful, but you cannot make anything out of it. It is beautiful and meaningless. Tremendously beautiful, it can be enjoyed, but the meaning, there is none. And this is my understanding. Unless you can enjoy the meaninglessness of it, you will never become religious. God to me is the meaningless beauty that surrounds you. The meaningless song that is heard all around, the meaningless murmur of a brook, the meaningless whisper of the winds, the meaningless silence of the stars. Tremendously beautiful, but meaningless. Why do I say meaningless? Because it is unknowable. A thing remains meaningless unless it is known. And once you know, then it is meaningful. And I tell you, stars are mysterious, but they are nothing compared to your inner being. Rivers are mysterious, but they are nothing compared to your inner stream of consciousness. The Himalayas are mysterious, but nothing compared to your inner peaks of ecstasy. Be rather than know. Marcus Aurelius looks to me to be one of the most more and deeper understanding when he says, "Be thyself." Then Socrates, when he says, "Know thyself." Though I know well that you cannot be yourself unless you try, the Socratic dictum. Know thyself, try to know. You will never be able to know, and by you will drop the inquiry of knowing and you will start being. Knowing is philosophically, being is religion. And I'll step out of the text for a second and just share that's something that I've pondered over quite a bit. A lot of times it's like I know I'm me, I know I exist, but I've often said to myself, I don't know myself. I know what I like to do, I know my characteristics, but deep down, do I know myself? And this question finally gets answered in this passages here. So Osho continues on by saying, one of the greatest American Christian theologians of this time, of this century, Paul Tillich, was once asked at the end of his life, somebody in Santa Barbara, a student, asked him, "Sir, do you pray?" And he said, "No, I meditate. But if you ask me, I will say, no, I don't even meditate. I just am." Prayer is duality, you and God. Without God, you cannot pray. The other is needed. It is a dependence. Right is Tillich when he says, "No, I don't pray." The answer is not Christian. The answer is Buddhist. He says, "I meditate." And when stepping out of the text again, when I skydive, I think I've said this in one of my books or something like that. But when I skydive, it's more of a Zen experience. I turned it into a Zen experience. Before I even get on the plane, I center myself and I quiet my mind. I quiet my thoughts, and I used to say a prayer, and the prayer was that I would say to God, "God, let's do this skydive, you and me together. I'll do it, and you use my body, and let's enjoy the skydive together and make it a holy experience." And that was my prayer. And I used to say it almost every time I got on the plane. And then eventually, I would just do my silence because I knew that I didn't have to keep repeating it, the same thing. God knows my intent. And the intent was, to share a beautiful experience with my Creator. But anyway, going back to what Osho says here, prayer is duality, you and God. Without God, you cannot pray. The other is needed. It is a dependence. I think I repeated this already. Right is Tillet. She says, no, I don't pray. The answer is not Christian. The answer is Buddhist. He says, I meditate. And meditation is a freedom from God also, because even God is not needed. You cannot pray without God, because to whom will you pray? To whom will you raise your head? To whom will you raise your eyes? To whom will you talk? With whom will the dialogue be? A God is needed. Maybe he is there or maybe he is not there. That is irrelevant. But prayer requires a God. It is a dependence. Without God, the man who is praying will immediately stop praying. If there is no God, or the news comes that he is dead or has been assassinated or something like that, or just died of old age, the man who is praying will immediately stop and throw away his rosary, and he will say, finished. Now there is no point. To whom to pray? Prayer is a dependence. That is how Buddhism goes higher than Christianity. Even if God dies, it will not disturb the man who is meditating. He will say, it is okay. It matters not whether God is alive or not. It was never a requirement to me. I am enough unto myself. The person who meditates alone. But if you ask me, do you meditate, sir? I will say no. I don't even meditate. I just am. Because in meditation, some activity is involved. The other is not there. You are not in a dialogue, but you are doing something. The doing is there. The doing becomes the other. The doer and the doing, you are meditating. Meditation is an action. You are doing something. And sometimes you meditate and sometimes you don't meditate. That is not worth much, because something that sometimes is and sometimes is not cannot be your nature. Your nature is always there. It does not depend on any doing. I just am, and that is the greatest prayer. That is the greatest meditation. That is what Zen masters say. If you ask them what they do, they say, we chop wood, we carry water. When we feel hungry, we eat, and when we feel tired, we sleep. And this is what I mean when I say I am. Even the dependence on doing something is no longer there. Prayer needs the other. Meditation needs action. Being needs nothing. And then you are in tune with that which needs nothing. Then for the first time, you are in tune. Then for the first time, you are grounded. You say, I don't know who I am. There is no need. There is no need to know who you are. The only need is don't be anything else. Just be that which you don't know you are. Just be that. Don't move outside it. There is no need to know it, because you are already. You are it already, I should say. Whether you know it or not, or don't know, makes no difference. Knowledge will not add anything to it, and not knowing will not take anything away out from it. Knowing will not add anything to it, so what is the point? You are. Call the rose by another name, it remains a rose. Whether you know the name of the rose or not, it remains a rose. And whether you call it rose or don't call it rose, the rose is not bothered. It is. Emerson says somewhere in his diary that outside my window, the rose bush is blooming. The rose bush is not bothered with who it is. The roses are not comparing themselves with other roses of the past, and they are not thinking of future roses. Just in this moment, they are with God. This day, they are with God. In your being, you are God. I will not even say with God. In your being, just this very moment, you are God. You are divine. No knowledge is needed. Take a second and absorb that, because that was pretty deep. But Osho continues on by saying, don't be worried about it. Nobody has ever known who he is. He is, and all those who have said that they know they are just repeating cliches. They must have read it in the scriptures, but those are only words. You can say, I am Brahma, or I am Atman, or I am the Supreme Self, or you can even say that you are God, but these words are cliches, and they are ugly. They don't say anything. They don't mean anything. I feel like I need grounding. Yes, that's good. You need it. But grounding has nothing to do with knowledge. Grounding has something to do with your being. That's why I say Marcus Aurelius is better than Socrates when he says, be thyself. Is there no place for grounding? Place is part of space. Time and place are not there in your being. Space and time both disappear there. You will be grounded only when you become to a certain state within, where you cannot say who you are, where you cannot say where you are, where you cannot say when you are. Everything has stopped. Time does not move. The clock may be moving, tick-tock, tick-tock. It may be moving, but you can listen. But time does not move. Only the futile gesture of the clock. Something deep within you has stopped. That is the point I call the point of know when. And there is no space. You cannot say who you are or where you are, and where is irrelevant. You cannot show on the map where you are. You are no more on the map. You don't belong to the map. You are no more part of the measured. You are no more part of the charted. You are transcendence. And you can look at space, but when you are not in space, you can look at time, but you are not in time. Then you are grounded. This is what I call being. This is what Jesus calls the kingdom of God. This is what Buddha calls nirvana. Yes, you need grounding, but it would be better to say you are already grounded. You just need awareness. How can you be if you are not grounded? You are already in God. How can you be otherwise? There is no other way to be, and that is the only way that there is. But you are not aware. Become more alert, watchful. No need to be worried about knowledge or who you are. Just become aware. Whatsoever you are, XYZ, that unknown acts. Whosoever you are, just become alert and aware, and let that unknown within you, or unknowable within you, not fall into a stupor and sleep. Awake it. Don't allow it to move into dreams anymore. Shake it out of sleep, and suddenly you will see that you are already grounded. In fact, whatsoever is needed is already there. Just a turning about is needed. And that is what Jesus means when he says return. The kingdom of God is at hand. He is talking about your hands. The kingdom of God is always at hand. Just stretch out your hand a little, and you'll be able to touch it. That stretching out of the hand is what I mean by awareness. I want to repeat that paragraph one more time. And that's what Jesus means when he says return. The kingdom of God is at hand. He's talking about your hands. The kingdom of God is always at hand. Just stretch out your hand a little and you'll be able to touch it. And that stretching out of the hand is what I mean by awareness. So that's what Osho said in his book, again, Innocence, Knowledge, and Wonder, a wonderful book. Almost through with it. It's been a great journey reading this one, and I think I've shared quite a bit of it on several podcasts. But a little more about the grounding. Basically, Osho says that you are, but there's a journey that you have to go on before you can actually realize that you are. I mean, it's just, you can't just repeat to yourself that I am and then know that you are. The journey the Taoists call going on a journey where at first you're brought up being dependent on your parents and relatives and teachers and preachers and mentors and things like that. And then a time comes when most people get to a point where they rebel against that dependence and they become independent. And they go into independence, the second stage of spiritual development. But the second stage of spiritual development just takes you into the river a little bit deeper, and you lose some of your grounding. You become adrift in water, and you can fight the currents and go upstream and feel like you're in control of everything, but only for a certain time you fight the currents. Eventually you'll have to give in and go into the third stage of your spiritual development, which the Taoists call interdependence. And interdependence is where you realize that you are swimming upstream, you are fighting, and you're tired and you don't know what to do. So the best thing to do, believe it or not, is to give in and just float. Learn the art of floating, learn the art of giving in, learn the art of being receptive and receptive to whatever God has to give you. Even if it's death, just be receptive to his gifts. And I promise that if you do this giving in, if you go into it, it's the third stage leads you to the fourth, which Friedrich Nietzsche called the stage of the child. And in this stage, you are returning, you're being receptive, and you become interdependent, which leads you to the realization that you're interconnected with everything, that you cannot exist without the trees, and the trees cannot exist without you. The trees can't exist without the sky, and the sky can't exist without the stars. So it goes on and on, but it's all interconnected. All of space is interconnected, and science is really just becoming to realize these realities that Taoists and mystics have been saying for a very long time now. I mean, they don't want to admit it. I heard one scientist on a debate say, "Hey, it just interconnectedness. It just isn't so. It just isn't." But he didn't have any theories to or proof to back up what he was saying, and I think that now that we've discovered through CERN and the particle accelerator that there is something tying all of existence together, that it's not just space out there. You look into the night sky and you think that it's just stars that are billions of miles away from each other and maybe distant planets and things like that. But in reality, it's all interconnected. And I think that's how Einstein realized that space has a pattern to it. And he thought that you could bend the pattern and create wormholes, which would be shortcuts from one part of the universe to the other part of the universe. But anyway, so all of life is interdependent. But that is the fourth stage of realization. And that interdependence and interconnectedness, basically, you're being totally receptive to whatever the universe is giving you or helping you to understand. And that fourth stage is the child stage. That's the coming back home, the acceptance that like Osho said earlier, that there are three stages: the known, the unknown, and that which is unknowable. And in the East, that's what they believe in, that there's not just two stages, not just the known and the unknown, and whatever is unknown will eventually be known. The East have a saying that there's a part that will always be unknown. There's going to be something that is beyond the comprehension of our small minds. And when you become enlightened, your small mind unifies with the mind of existence, and existence does have a mind. A consciousness is a better word for it, but you become one with that consciousness, and you feel the oneness, the wholeness of everything, and then you're united with the all. It's an amazing, wonderful feeling, and I hope one day that you have the courage to dive into meditation, dive into spirituality, and go on the journey to know yourself, to be yourself. So anyway, thanks again for joining me. My name is Doug Grummons, and this is Podcast 15, and I look forward to putting out Podcast 16 soon. But anyway, once again, thanks for joining me. I'm getting ready to go to Mexico in a couple weeks. I'm real excited about that. And I think what I'm going to try to do when I'm down in Mexico is make a couple videos with my friends and share those videos. It should be a very beautiful experience. Y'all take care of yourselves.